about them Irish?
I can't take it anymore. I need a national championship.
This is the Four Horsemen podcast.
Marcus Freeman has done it again. And the fact that you don't know which specific thing I'm referring to, because it could be multiple, is just a sign for how good this hire has been. Welcome to the Four Horsemen podcast. I'm Dylan, joined as ever by Steve. Today we've got for you guys National Signing Day. This is an all things recruitment podcast. Steve has been licking his lips for months waiting to get into this. We wanted to do the early period, but that was during the bowl season. So we're doing it now. But before we get into it, I want to recap things that have happened in recent weeks since we've last recorded. So, Steve, I'm going to pitch this over to you now. How impressed have you been by Marcus Freeman?
Electric. I mean, the guy is just absolutely electric so far. He's come in like a bat out of hell, and everything that I could have even imagined, he's doubled in nature and in stature. And I mean, he's just a giant walking around that campus right now. So I not enough words to I knew it was really, really good at the time. And then when we had our episode detailing the statistics and going through like his basically the name that he's built for himself on the field, and then on the recruiting trail, expectations were high, and then he just blew them all away. I mean, he's just been fantastic. So I'm thrilled. I'm happier than a pig in crap.
It's crazy. He hasn't coached it down for us yet, and he might already be everyone's favorite to replace Coach Kelly whenever that time comes. I think that just is a lot to his character. But let's get right into what he has done, because at the beginning, I could have referred to many things. First and foremost, we talked about this on our last podcast, Houston Griffiths has taken his name out of the transfer portal. We gave it a 60-40 split of probability, and that's turned out to be correct. Marcus Freeman seems to have done a great job there. It looks like they didn't guarantee any playing time or anything, but I think just having the previous coach, Terry Joseph, the secondary coach, out, bringing Marcus Freeman in, being a little more committed to Griffith at a certain position as well, I think did a lot of help. Next up, the biggest thing that we were talking about a lot too, the 2022 defensive end, Tyson Ford, top 100 player in the country, was trending Oklahoma all month. All the picks were going in for the Sooners because his decision date was coming up early. And as soon as Freeman gets in there, within a week, everything is just like an avalanche for Notre Dame. And he picks the Irish. He's coming to Notre Dame. Just yesterday, Notre Dame had received the commitment of Aiden Gabara. He was Gabriel. I'm not really great with names, Steve. That's your kind of area of expertise. But that's a Penn State lean. Gabaria. Okay, so this is a Penn State lean, 3-star defensive end to play more of the weak side. That has happened already too. On top of that, I'd love to talk about the USC linebacker, another consensus top 100 player. I'm not even going to try to butcher the name. From California, but Polynesian. Notre Dame offers him. Marcus Freeman gives him an offer. And within 24 hours, he decommits from Southern Cal. I think Notre Dame is probably a lock to win that race now. That's another top 100 player in the 22 class. Marcus Freeman, on top of all this, has been dishing out offers to every top defensive back and linebacker you can think of in the country. It has been electric. He has blown everybody away. And I've never been this excited for Notre Dame's future.
Yeah, it's and as we're going to detail throughout the course of the podcast today, is this has been on the rise. This has been something that we've been building towards for quite some time. We've said it once, we've said it a million times. It always felt like we fell short in one aspect of the game, whether it was the trenches, the skill positions, special teams, QB, whatever that may be. There was always one thing kind of lacking. Over the past couple of years, we've really been just building and collecting talent and developing talent. And now with the advent of of Marcus Freeman and what he's bringing to the table, and the names that we are getting into the living room of. All of it is just outrageously exciting. So
It's like nobody has told Marcus Freeman it's supposed to be hard to recruit at Notre Dame.
yeah, it's like everyone that we're traditionally basically automatically out on, and we just have to settle for scraps, quote unquote. Not that our everyone knows I'm not like saying it in a pejorative term, but yeah, he just comes in. He's just like, no, I want that guy, so I'm just going to go recruit him. And
Yep.
in the past, that just hasn't worked, and now it just is. It's just crazy.
He seems to just completely reshape the narrative around Notre Dame football of, and we were talking about this earlier. Coach Elston said only less than half of the recruits in the top 100 we can recruit. And you have that mindset, and you have the standards, and you have on top of that, you got to pitch Notre Dame to people, which isn't always attractive. Marcus Freeman doesn't seem to care. And I don't know this at all, but it seems like Marcus Freeman is the type of guy to go fight admissions for a player like Lou Holtz used to do. I could totally see that happening in the next little while because he wants his guys. And something that blew me away in his press conference or media availability, he pointed out that talent matters more than scheme. He said, it is my job to get the best players out there, put them on the field, and I have to figure out how to work. And to me, that is just preaching to the choir. That's how long have we wanted that in not just football, but in kind of all sports and all areas of life, right? You just want the best and you figure it out from there. In terms of stylistic defense, he said the names are going to pretty much stay the same. Rover position is still in at Notre Dame. The Viper, which for you guys who don't know, that is the defensive end who plays the drop back a lot. So about 15% of the snaps are in coverage. That was Dalen Hayes. It was Okwara the year before. That's staying. The Buck term is going to be the Will, but for the most part, it is going to be a very similar looking defense. And it's the mindset of just get the 11 best players out there, and I'm going to make it work that has me in love with them.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Talent over scheme. Not to brag, and this is kind of an aside. I'm pretty sure I single-handedly brought back the NCAA football by EA Sports like that. I'm pretty sure I did that. And while I was building my 60-year dynasty that I just finished, I switched between the 3-4, which is my preferred defense, the 4-3. I went to a 4-2-5 stack, and then I just depending on the team, the program, and the talent, you kind of just adjust. If four defensive linemen, 3 defensive linemen, do you want to have an extra corner and be like a 3-3-5, kind of like what Notre Dame has now, or they're more of a 4-2-5? But it's all about just adjusting. There's no. You play with the talent that you have. When you're in the NFL, it's a lot easier to stay pat with your particular system, go out and get your guys, whether it be trades, free agency, or whatever, or the draft. But when it comes to plucking guys out of high school, it's more so just get the most talented person you can possibly get onto that field, and then you'll just make it work. And that's what Marcus is aiming for. He's saying all the right things to tickle me in all the right places.
Speaking of draft that you kind of mentioned there, how good was our boys at the Senior Bowl?
Great. Yeah. And especially the offensive line prospects and even the defensive line. I mean, Dalen Hayes, I mean, he looked like he was like pushing guys into their place. Yeah, so exactly. He was just moving bodies.
Our other defensive end, Addy, was one commentator said he thinks he could be a late first-round pick. I think that's very ambitious, but that's the type of performance he put out there as well. To me, Dalen Hayes was dominating the social media, but our offensive line guys held well as too, right? I mean, Aaron Banks was fantastic, and that's just great to see. Ian Book seemed to have a very strong outing as well. For the most part, he was kind of among the better quarterbacks, which is huge. I think he's a guy that is going to get drafted. So that's kind of the end cycle of Notre Dame, right? What we're doing today is the beginning, the recruitment, and it ends with the Senior Bowl and the draft. So now that we've come full circle, our guys are going to be drafted. They had a great performance, and they always seem to at Notre Dame. Now that we've got Marcus Freeman's hype out of the way and what he's been doing, let's get into what this whole podcast is dedicated to, and it's recruitment. And I'm excited. We signed the 9th class in the country per 24/7 composite rankings. I think we all agree it is much better than that. It seems to always be, right? Notre Dame seems to be signing classes between 10 and 15 and then ending polls between 5 and 10.
Oh, Dylan, this is something I don't know if you want me to get into it now, but in doing a little bit of research and kind of going back, I'm extraordinarily pissed off right now at this moment in regards to how 247 composite or just all of the rankings, because composite from 247 encompasses everything like Rivals, Max Reps, ESPN, everything. So, but basically it just feels like every time we get a top tier talent guy to commit, it just instantly drops in the rankings. If you want me to continue to go on a rant, I'll go for it. If you wanted to finish your thought, you choose your own adventure here.
Go for it, King. Okay. You've got something boiling here.
All right. Now, in 2019, we signed 0 5-star prospects. Did you know that?
Yep.
Do you know who else we signed in the year 2019?
Kyle Hamilton.
Is Kyle Hamilton good at football?
Extremely good at football.
Okay. So Kyle Hamilton was a 3-star, basically no name out of Atlanta, Georgia. Notre Dame signs him. He at one point got up to a 5-star ranking, and basically as soon as he signed with Notre Dame, that 5-star ranking mysteriously goes away.
Yeah.
And nowadays, we're heading into his now true junior season 3 years later. He is going to be arguably a top 15 overall pick in the NFL. This is absolutely his last year on campus, so everybody enjoy it. He is the best corner, the best safety in college football. He is absolutely incredible. Kyle Hamilton was a 5-star prospect every step of the way. Anyone who thinks differently, I will beat the crap out of you. Now that goes to 2020. Year 2020, we officially had one 5-star commit, and that was tight end Michael Mayer. We also signed Jordan Johnson and Chris Tyree, both who, prior to committing to Notre Dame, were 5-star athletes, and then they signed with Notre Dame, and all of a sudden they mysteriously dropped down to a 4-star again.
Can I add on top of this?
Yeah.
So 2020 is the weirdest year because when you're looking at 24/7 composite rankings, the way it tends to go is if you're a 98 and above, you're a 5-star. If you're an 89 to less than a 98, you're a 4-star. And anything below an 89 is a 3-star. This is the only year I've seen for a Notre Dame recruit, in this case Jordan Johnson, who is over 98. He's 98.22 is his composite score. And he's a 4-star. I have not seen that in any other prospect, because if you're 98, you're genuinely a 5-star. That's just kind of the rule of thumb, except for Jordan Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's just insane. So Jordan Johnson and Chris Tyree just get plucked away from their 5-star status, and as soon as they sign with Notre Dame. And then this past year, we had Tyler Buchner, who he was a 5-star when he originally committed, and then he didn't have the greatest Elite 11, which is basically what everyone says. I don't even know what that means. It's like he had a QB camp where, among 11 other guys, maybe he wasn't the best one out there. Okay, like
that seems like such a soft thing to decrease someone's ratings for. I'd rather see how you perform in a game than in a camp.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've seen the highlight reels. You tweeted out the stats. You tweeted out specifically a YouTube clip from our podcast account, which we're going to cover a little bit more later about some changes to that account. But, I mean, the kid is a certified baller. He had like 50 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Like, he's insane. And then, I mean, Blake Fisher, you could make an argument. I mean, he's a 0.973. At a 0.971, you have Rocco Spindler. So I guess those guys are kind of those tweeners that might get up to a 5-star, might not. I would probably say Blake Fisher would be, because given the every camp that he's been in, he's just been mauling people. It just feels like we just get absolutely no respect every step of the way. And here's 3 guys from 2017. If we wanted to go all the way back to 5 years ago now. Now these are 3 guys. None of them were ranked as 5-star athletes. Okay, Cole Kmet, Robert Hainsey, Aaron Banks. Where are they all going to be playing? Where are they all going to be playing? in the NFL. All of them are going to be
Possibly all for the Chicago Bears too.
legitimately. It's just like, I mean, what the hell do we have to do? It's just,
I don't know if it's a
it's such
conspiracy, but
disrespect.
it is weird that it happens to us often. Blake Fisher is a 5-star on Rivals, but again, with 24 composite, it is an aggregation of all of them. So on aggregate, he just falls outside that ranking. It's weird. It is weird, but that doesn't mean anything, right? Whether you get the 4 or the 5, it doesn't really. You're within a range of extreme athleticism that I think a better metric is just top 100. How many top 100 guys do you have? Because a lot of guys move down, especially with COVID, right? That's what happened to Tyler Buckner, too. It was the Elite 11, but it was also California didn't play football this last fall. So Tyler Buckner just kind of, it's not that he dropped, it's just that people were getting in ahead of him because they were playing. And that put him down to a 4-star. But whatever. So apparently 24/7's final rankings are locked in, and let's get into it right now. So do you want to play a little bit of rapid fire?
Yeah, lead the way.
So what I'm going to do here is we got the 24 composite in an Excel sheet, by the way, because we do research on this podcast. I'm going to list them in terms of highest ranking to lowest ranking. In a sentence or two, give me your thought on the player, and the object here is to get our audience to be familiar with the names in this class and what we can kind of get from their profile. So starting off, and I'll say high 4-star. So anything between a 94, maybe a 93, and a 98 is a high 4-star to me, which is essentially, borderline 5. So high 4-star, offensive tackle from Indiana, Blake Fisher.
Mauler. He's just going to be a mover of mountains. Anyone in his way is getting pancaked. I mean, he's pretty much what you saw from Aaron Banks is almost a carbon copy of what you can expect with Blake. That was a little bit too long, more than one sentence. I'll be better.
That's okay. No, that's okay. We can spend a minute on each. Do you think he could be a guard too? Because he seems to have the profile to play both inside and out.
Absolutely. I would figure him for a guard at 6'5.5", 336 pounds. The 336 is a little bit worrying for me to be on the outside, because you have to be able to move carrying that much weight. So I would be okay with him being a guard. But I mean, depending on his body and everything, if he can handle the outside, footwork, posture, the whole 9, leverage, then sure. I mean, wherever he plays, he's obviously going to dominate.
Yeah, that's my feeling too. All right, number 2 on the list. This was a huge get that kind of turned the tide of the recruitment cycle because it was looking dire for Notre Dame during COVID. Rocco Spindler, guard out of Michigan.
Yep, very much so. A lot of these same comments, I would say, in regards to Blake Fisher. So Rocco and Blake are going to be just a staple of the offensive line going forward. Rocco is slightly smaller, but not by much. He's an inch shorter at 6'4.5". He's 315 pounds, so he's about 25 pounds less than Blake. So if Rocco was a little bit taller, I'd be okay with moving him out to tackle. But at 6'4.5", I mean, he can technically do it, but it seems like their intent to sign him as a guard. But he's going to be very, very stable on this on this offensive line.
No, not to get everyone's hopes up too high, but I really, really get Quentin Nelson vibes from Rocco Spindler. Just the mindset, the way he plays football, it's just really exciting. That was such a huge get, beating out the Wolverines. Next, he is the Messiah, Tyler Buckner, dual quarterback from California.
The man that will lead us to the promised land.
No more needs to be said because we are going to get into him later, and specifically why he is better than J.J. McCarthy, a Michigan 5-star quarterback. Next up, depending on which site you like, you could prefer one to the other, but on the composite, they go back-to-back. First up, wide receiver out of Georgia, Deion Colzie.
Deion Colzie is going to be a baller. So he's 6'4", 193. I don't want to say like Megatron vibes, but I mean he has the body type of like a Chase Claypool, who had the body type of Megatron. So like I don't want to like directly, I don't want to put essentially the pressure of people thinking, oh holy shit, this guy's going to be a Calvin Johnson type, but he is very fluid in and out of routes, and he is a big body guy that can go up and get the ball. He can high point it just like Chase was great at. So very high on Deion.
He's one of two guys in this class who decommitted from Notre Dame and then recommitted, which is something I don't recall seeing very often in the Kelly era. So that's huge progress there as well. And then his companion, a lot of guys in the fan base like him more. High 4-star receiver out of Ohio, Lorenzo Styles Jr.
Yep, Zoe Styles, 6'1", 185 out of Pickerington, Ohio. He is going to be he's fitted for the outside as well. He can definitely run the outside routes. I think he also is kind of a more prototype of guys that can move into the slot. Anyone between like 5'11" and 6'2" in the slot, I think is kind of going to be the new future that we're looking at. And he looks pretty prime for that. I mean, again, very fluid and very quick with his route running. Almost an Antonio Brown type. Again, I'm just saying that in regards to making a comparison. I'm not directly saying like this is he's going to be that guy, but that's what he would remind me of.
Nice. So all offense so far. We now move to the defense. I would call him high 4-star, or I definitely would, the next two guys. So let's go first to Missouri defensive tackle Gabriel Rubio.
Mm-hmm. So Gabe Rubio, 6'5.5", 305-pound defensive tackle, and he's basically just going to be a gigantic human plug. Whoever's trying to come up the front or come up the middle of the defensive line, basically when they try to run the ball, this guy is going to pretty much just pick them up and throw them backwards.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a big man. I'm just looking up right now how tall Jerry Tillery is.
He's 6'7".
6'7", that's what I thought. Tillery's a little bit longer and a little bit taller, but Rubio can be that 3-tech that just terrorizes defenses. But terrorizing offenses. And speaking of terrorizing offenses, next up, Prince Collie, a fan favorite, outside linebacker. Tennessee recruited more so to play the rover position.
Yeah, love Prince Collie. Very, very high on him. We'll get into this a little bit later, but 6'1", 210 pounds. Basically just has the makings of continuing on the legacy of great linebackers at Notre Dame, from Teo to Jalen Smith all the way up to Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and then it looks like Prince Collie is going to be that dude. So very high on him.
All right, next up, we're going back to tight end for tight end U. Kane Barong out of Georgia.
Kane Barong out of Hartwell, Georgia. Strange name, 6'4", 230 pounds. He was ranked 9th at his position, but as we know with Notre Dame, anyone who's going to play tight end for them, one, has to be a guy that can block and can catch and can just be a straight-up baller. I'm expecting some great things out of him. It's a deep tight end room, but he's going to be a guy.
And with Tommy Tremble unexpectedly declaring for the draft, we're a little bit thin at tight end right now, just as a position group, losing him and Brock Wright. So that's going to be huge just to add some bodies there, and Kane could be, the next great Notre Dame tight end. Next up, a very late addition and also a late riser. This guy's been skyrocketing up the rankings, and, give it another few months, he could have been borderline 5-star. Audric Estime, running back out of New Jersey, and I believe he was New Jersey Player of the Year.
Mm-hmm. In a sentence, a brick shit house.
Absolutely.
6'1.5", 215 pounds. If you are in the open field attempting to tackle this man, say your last rites or have them read to you more accurately by a priest, because you are about to die.
Yeah, the idea of Chris Tyree being lightning and then Audric Estime being thunder kind of makes me think running backs maybe matter a little bit. Let's move on. The next wide receiver in the class, and an excellent one, I think, who's kind of gone under the radar a bit. Another one out of Georgia, Jaden Thomas.
Yeah, JT, Pace Academy, Atlanta, Georgia, 6'1", 205 pounds. He's a mid-range 4-star guy, 0.899. You round up, basically call him a 90 quote unquote overall. He has some other guys that he's going to have to compete with, but he has the body type and he's a freak athlete. I'm pretty sure that JT also played baseball. Am I correct?
I'm not sure, but that seems Probably.
I'm 97% sure that in his commitment video, he also had baseball as a thing. So like he's one of those guys that can do it all. And I think he's pretty renowned for his freak catches, like his circus catches. So this is going to be a guy that it might take a little bit for him to break through, but upside is through the roof.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate there too. Let's move to one of 4, I believe, cornerbacks in this class. Philip Riley, decommitted from Notre Dame, committed to USC, decommitted back to ND, where the better school is. Out of Florida, but he's really from California. Is that correct?
I know there was some sort of weird backstory to it. He's recruited from Florida, but sometimes these guys will move around, especially when it goes to private academies. So,
do you have any thoughts on this recruitment?
Yeah, Philip Riley. It's imperative that we get top end guys that are going to be comparable to him going forward at the cornerback and safety position, because that's just the way that the game is evolving. He's a dude. He could have gone to Florida, he could have gone to Georgia, he could have gone to Bama, he could have gone to basically anywhere and been a starter by the time he's a sophomore, which is pretty much what he's going to probably project to be. He's probably even going to fight in camp for a starting position. That's how weak we are right now at corner, or at least I don't want to say we're weak, but it's open more accurately. But Philip Riley, 6 foot, 195. Notre Dame has their prototype. They try to go for guys at least 6 feet at the corner position. 6 feet to 6'3" is kind of their sweet spot. And Riley is he's just great. Very smooth hips, able to jump routes, and he has a long body. So exciting stuff.
Yeah, I think they made an exception on the 6 foot rule this year, but we'll get to that in a moment too. Another offensive tackle, one of many in this class, Caleb Johnson from Florida.
Yeah, we stole him from Auburn. He's
very late.
Very, very late. He's 6'7", 295 pounds, out of Trinity Catholic in Ocala, Florida. He was a 3-star originally when we flipped him. He has now been upgraded to a 4-star. So very excited for Caleb Johnson. Again, he's going into a very packed offensive line in terms of the depth chart, but so it will take him some time, but it usually does, especially for offensive linemen, most of them redshirt. So don't expect to see him for a couple of years, but when he's there, he's a monster.
That reminds me of our first episode we ever did. We talked about the incoming 2019 recruiting class. At one point we did, maybe it wasn't our first episode, but we talked about who we'd like to see, and we talked about Zeke Correll, Quinn Carroll, Andrew Kristovic. It's going to be an epic class, and we're only now starting to get these guys in. So expect that with the offensive tackles that we're talking about. Even Blake Fisher, a guy as great as that, could take a little while to get into that starting lineup for the Irish.
For sure, exactly.
So that's the end of the 12 stars, the 12 4-stars. We now signed 15 3-stars, and we're going to start with a very, very late flip out of nowhere. Nobody saw this coming. Kerry Gee, safety from Georgia.
Yeah, he's 6'3", 185. He's from Atlanta, Georgia, or at least that's where he played ball, and we flipped him from LSU. So, yes, he's a 3-star guy, but anytime that LSU is going into Georgia territory or Bama territory in terms of recruiting and pulling a guy that's 3-star, that he has tremendous upside. And for him to flip over to the Irish, very exciting stuff.
Yeah, well said. We'll get into more on him later. Next up, we always get these random state recruits, and this is probably my favorite. Joe Alt, offensive tackle out of Minnesota.
Yeah, and that's where I'm pretty sure Zeke Correll or Quinn Carroll is from. It's one of the two.
It's Carroll.
Yeah,
Quinn
those two will always forever in my brain just be basically a clone of each other. But yeah, but Joe Alt, he's 6'7", 283. So he's a massive guy. He is a 3-star guy, but again, 3-star doesn't mean that these guys are not going to ever play or see the field. It just means it's going to take them some time to develop, whether it's mentally, whether it's physically. it is what it is. These are still guys with tremendous upside. So expect Joe Alt to be on the field in probably 3 to 4 years. But when you see him, he is going to be a great addition to the offensive line.
Yeah, well said. Next up, the second tight end of the class, Mitchell Evans from Ohio.
Yeah, so Mitch Evans is 6'7", 240 pounds. So he's basically you have another offensive lineman essentially from Wadsworth, Ohio. So he is going to be again kind of a depth guy and more so a blocking tight end. And it's going to probably take him some time to start seeing receptions, but it's all part of the process of building depth.
The last man to sign in the recruitment class, a controversial figure, Logan Diggs, running back out of Louisiana. He picked up a late LSU offer.
Yeah, so he's 6 foot 195. He is a running back. I believe he was the Sportsman of the Year in Louisiana. And for us to go into Louisiana and again go basically straight up against LSU and fight for a guy that they were recruiting hard for. So yeah, he's a 3-star guy, but to repeat myself and keep banging the drum, still tons of upside, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him get reps this year, but it might be a little bit too early. We'll see. At the very least, going forward, we will see this guy on the field on Saturdays.
Another random state guy, Ryan Barnes, cornerback.
Bo Barnes has potentially, his name is Ryan. He goes by Bo from Gaithersburg, Maryland, 6'2", 185. So again, absolutely that prototype. He has probably the highest upside of a underranked guy of the entire class, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of people in the recruiting realm and in Notre Dame Twitter and talking spaces. Think of him essentially as like, I basically think of him as, I don't know, Darrelle Revis. I mean, he is everything that I've seen about this kid is you do not want to go against him in man coverage, because if you throw the ball his way, it is not going to land in the hands of the receiver. Period. End. Like, that's it. So he's going to be a lockdown guy. Hopefully we can see him on the field this upcoming fall.
Remember, the best corner we've had at Notre Dame in the last decade, Julian Love, was a 3-star recruit as well. Mm-hmm. So there's no shame in that at all, because back-to-back 3-star corners, we're going to Chance Tucker from California.
Yeah, Chance Tucker is 6'1", 180, again, kind of filling into that type that they like. And all the things that I would say about any other 3-star still apply here. Tons of upside, might take him a little bit of time to develop, probably hit the weight room, get maybe up to 190, 195. But as he puts on some weight, as he gets onto campus, gets a feel for Marcus Freeman's defense, I think we're probably 2 to 3 years away from seeing him. But again, definitely a difference maker in time.
Yeah, that cornerback group's going to be an absolute dogfight this coming fall. So going back to safety, the second safety of the class, Justin Waters from Illinois.
Yeah, so Justin Walters from Bolingbrook, Illinois, 6'2", 185. And again, I think he's a little bit undersized for the safety position, just in terms of weight. So that's probably why he's a 3-star. Expect him to put on some weight and some muscle, build up a little bit of speed, and again, it takes some time to develop, but he'll be out there.
Nice. Kind of rounding out the defense here in the bottom of the class in terms of the rankings, but of course, these guys are going to be drafted anyway, all of them. Devin Opiu, linebacker / defensive end. I think he's being brought in to play more of a defensive end position out of California.
Yeah, he'll probably be the Viper, if anything, that drop end, because he's fast enough and athletic enough to play the linebacker position, but also get down and on the defensive line and rush the QB. So 6'5", 220 pounds. I think it's more so, he's a freak athlete. I think it's more so for them kind of deciphering where he's going to fit into the scheme, or if they can scheme around him. So that's probably why you're seeing a little bit lower of a ranking. But, as he develops and as Marcus Freeman gets his hands on him, I think Devin actually has tremendous upside with the body type he has.
And he was a UCLA commit, correct? And he flipped late as well?
That's correct.
Yeah, Notre Dame, I think, set maybe a school record for amount of flips they got this. I mean, that's what happens, right? You're playing good, you're on TV, you're making the playoff. People want to play for you. But you got to remember, guys, the California kids didn't get a chance to play football this fall. So a lot of these folks stayed ranked 3 stars, 4 stars when they didn't get the chance to move up. So this is going to be the weirdest recruiting class for everyone because we don't know how many late risers there are. So moving on to another, he's listed as a linebacker, but he could easily be another defensive end as well. Will Schweitzer,
Yep.
California.
Yep, he's also from California, 6'4", 220, so almost identical to Devin. And I think they're both of them are going to have a similar path in their career. It's a matter of figuring out where they're going to fit, D line or as a linebacker, and then kind of building out the defense around them. And it'll take them some time, but again, 2 really high upside guys that kind of got screwed out of their senior year. But hey, they're early enrollees, both of them, so it's going to give them a chance to get up to speed, get into the weight room, and learn the playbook.
That's another thing too. So many early enrollees in this class. That's just going to help. Interestingly, Devin and Will are separated by 0.0001 on 24 composite, and Barnes and Tucker are actually tied. So just to give you guys an idea of the gap between them, it's not very large. Another linebacker out of Hawaii this time, Kahanu Kia.
Yeah, 6'2", 220. He's out of Honolulu. I don't know anything about Hawaii. I've never been west of Atlanta. I'm not a very well-traveled man. But regardless, Keanu Kia, kind of same. He's got a good size. He could probably play inside if he wanted to, but he's more so going to be better on the outside. Now, whether or not he's athletic enough to play rover is yet to be seen, but it's going to be interesting to see how he will fit into the defense going forward.
Perfect. We're getting to the tail end here. Let's go Pat Coogan, a fan favorite guard out of Illinois.
6'5", 290 offensive lineman out of Chicago, Illinois. Just a fat, happy Irish guy. You gotta love it, especially on the Notre Dame campus. But he's good. He's very good. And again, this is a guy that's going to add some depth to the room and definitely projects to be or to fight to be a starter at some point in his career in the latter half, and that's probably how his career will play out.
You brought that up. Now I'm looking through the class for Irish surnames, and you might be the only one, perhaps Phil Riley. But yeah, not an Irish heavy class this year. Weak side defensive end Jason Onye, Rhode Island. Oh boy, it's a specialty for you.
Well, ironically, he went to Bishop Hendricken High School, which I went to LaSalle Academy. To say that there is a hatred between LaSalle and Hendricken, I honestly think it's a more bitter rivalry than like USC Notre Dame, than Red Sox Yankees, than name like the most bitter rivalries you can think of. My high school and his high school hated one another, but nonetheless, I love him. 6'5", 260 pounds. He's honestly probably a 3-star guy because Rhode Island doesn't get many views. Now, the very same high school had Kwity Paye as a 5-star guy a couple of years ago go to Michigan. And then he's going to be in the upcoming NFL draft. So I'm not sure if maybe Onye just didn't get as many looks or what it would be. He has the body type of a guy that could be a 4-star guy. So we'll see how his career develops. He probably didn't get a fair shot if I were to take a guess. So I'm going to defend my guy. But yeah, I mean, Jason's a beast.
Yeah, we have a really good ability to develop 3-star defensive ends. Moving on, another late flip from Cincinnati, I believe, and we'll get into that in a bit. JoJo Johnson, athlete but brought in to play corner from Indiana. Yeah,
JoJo Johnson, 5'11". He is 180 pounds. The fact that he's coming in to play corner as 5'11", 180, it does exactly go against the prototype or stereotype that we're looking for, as you alluded to earlier. Yeah, he could play wide receiver. He could play corner. Looks like he'll play corner for us. I think he projects to be kind of a Sean Crawford type. Right, this is a guy that's probably going to spend a lot of his time in the slot if I were to take a guess now. So he might get onto the field a little bit earlier than a lot of people expect.
Yep, I think, and that's something we'll talk about soon as well, is playtime. But let's round out this class here. This is unfair to call him a 3-star because really he's a 6-star per sailor. Kicker Josh Bryan from California.
Yeah, Josh Bryan, 6 foot 190 out of Chatsworth, California. He's just going to hit bombs. That's it. I mean, he's our next guy in. So after Doer finishes what is going to be a fantastic senior season for him, we transition right over to Josh Bryan. Can't wait for it.
And last but not least, a familiar name for Irish fans, Ron Powless III, a pro-style quarterback from Indiana.
Yeah, he's a 3-star guy. And it's important to remember that, again, 3-star guys can progress into top end talent. Antonio Brown was a 3-star guy, and you could probably go through all the people, and especially at the quarterback position, Ian Book was a 3-star QB. So yeah, Ron Paulus III. He is 6'3", 225 pounds. He's a pro style QB. He has the body type. He has the name, right? He has the probably a good upbringing in terms of being a student of the game, literally a coach's son. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, the big guy on campus is Tyler Buckner, but we'll see, 4 or 5 years down the line, throwing a red shirt there. Maybe he gets a year in, even if it's just a redshirted senior year. It's very highly possible we end up seeing him as the starting QB at some point in his career.
Interesting, Ron Powless is the Associate Athletics Director of football at Notre Dame. I'm sure that is irrelevant information. So there's the class. Took us a bit, but we got through it. We wanted all of the listeners to understand who these guys are and kind of attach a visual profile when we talk about them. So, I know we have an agenda, but I want to sneak this in first, Steve. What position groups are we strong at and weak at in this class?
Yeah, so we are definitely strong at wide receiver.
Yep.
I would say if we were to have a weakness, it would be the defensive line, and it's not because we don't have good prospects. We do. I don't see that we have the high
level.
Yeah, exactly. It basically is going to take those guys some time to develop, with the exception of Gabe Rubio. I think he's going to be kind of someone who can come in, but it's going to take the rest of the defensive line a couple of years to get in there.
And he's the only D tackle we picked up in this class too, so it's a little thin.
Exactly. But the wide receivers are great. The offensive line, as expected, especially with the two top guys, are just absolute units, and they're going to be moving bodies. So, I would say offensive line strength, wide receiver strength, defensive line is a weakness. And then I would say safety is definitely going to need some TLC, because as of now, we just have Justin Walters and Kerry G. Again, 2 really high upside guys, but it's going to take them, I would project, to be at least until their sophomore or junior years to get onto the field.
Yeah, I think corner is an interesting class too, because we've added depth for sure. 4 corners, we really needed this. We're thin. It's unseen if this will be high enough end guys. So it could be both a strength and a weakness. We don't know. We just don't know how these 3 stars and Riley's a low 4-star will project. But the depth is there at least. In terms of high end explosiveness, we're not too sure yet. But that's how I feel about this class too. Do you want to get into perhaps our top 7 personal? Not just based on the composite rankings, although that's obviously an influence, but just the 7 guys you like the most coming out of this class.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll let you take it to start.
Okay. So I'll let you have your throat have a little breather there. You carried the load. Okay, so first and foremost for me is actually Tyler Buckner. Like I said, I posted his highlight videos. We went through the statistics. Yes, he was playing slightly lower competition in California, but what he was doing was unhuman. What I see from Tyler Buckner is a 6'2" version of Kyler Murray. You can see Russell Wilson in his game. He moves like a human shouldn't move for that size. His dual threat ability is unbelievable. He scored 81 touchdowns in his junior season. Think about that. Over 50 throwing and the rest running. Excellent arm too. His deep ball is beautiful. He can throw on the run. I really see Kyler Murray. I see a lot of Kyler Murray in him. Second for me, we got to go Big Fish, the mayor of this recruiting class from Indiana. He put together a lot of this recruiting class. So 2 for me is going to be Blake Fisher. Whether he's outside or inside, not going to matter. I think he's going to be an NFL draft pick. 3 for me, Gabriel Rubio. This guy's a bring your lunchbox to work kind of guy. Works hard, great attitude, just a football dude. He's liked a few of our tweets, so maybe he's a listener of the show, and if he is, we'd love to have him on. He's just a beast at defensive tackle, and I think if not for how deep we are at defensive tackle this year, we could have seen him in his freshman year. I would expect it maybe to take him another year to get in just because of how good we are, but he's that type of guy where I feel comfortable with him on the field already. 4 for me, Rocco Spindler. We talked about, of course, that's the other guard. I think Quentin Nelson, maybe not quite as vicious, but that kind of player. 5, Prince Colley. He's going to be the rover. He's the heir to Owusu's position. And then for 6 and 7, I went interchangeable. It really depends on who you like, what site you're on, what you value in a receiver. But Colsey and Styles, interchangeable to me. I think Tyler Buckner is going to grow up with some great receivers, and it makes things so exciting.
Yeah, and I have, clearly I have a lot of the same. I will say at the start, I did kind of diss Rocco Spindler. Not that I don't think he's going to be great. I obviously do. I just think that there's going to be some other guys that position-wise are going to provide more value to us. What I'm referring to specifically, just number one, first and foremost, Tyler Buckner is the guy, right? The quarterback's the most important position on the field. Even if you look at the NFL, look at the Final Four teams that played for the conference championships. It's the winning position, right? Then I'm going to go with Blake Fisher. I literally think this guy is, again, we've had such a great run of first round picks with on the offensive line, and he's, there's going to be obviously some guys before him over the course of the next couple of years, because he's probably not going to get into the NFL draft for another 4 or 5 years, but he absolutely is going to be a first round pick. In my opinion, he's going to be an absolute tank. My third player that I'm taking here is going to be Deion Colsey, 6'4", over 200 pounds on the outside, with a absolute stud throwing him the football. And the wide receiver position is going to conveniently open up for him next year, to the point where I think he can probably start for 3 seasons and put up some really, really big numbers. So high on him. Then Prince Colley. He is going to be the staple of the defense. He's going to be a stud. He's going to be the next great linebacker for the Irish, and I already love him. Love the guy. My 6th guy I'll go with would be Gabe Rubio. It is going to take him a little bit of time to get into the lineup, but he will eventually just be absolutely plugging holes and terrorizing offensive lines and even quarterbacks eventually in due time. And then last but not least, again, just because of the value add and the way that the game is designed, is going to be Philip Riley. So right now we're basically banking on him to be the future of the secondary. In about, probably, if not this year, the next year, we're going to be relying very heavily on this guy at some point to basically take down one half of the field. And I think he has the talent to do it. So really excited about him.
It's a great list. So something we should do, because you're really good at this. We're going to pick a pet cat, meaning your guy. We're not allowed to do Tyler Buckner, because obviously. So a non-Tyler Buckner guy. Now, for those listening, Steve in the past in recruiting classes, his guy has been like Foskey. Who's the other one you had? An excellent. Was it Nana?
Yep, Nana Osofo-Mensah.
Yeah.
Watch for him this year. He hasn't made much of an impact, but watch for him this year.
And of course, Kyle Hamilton. So Steve has a really good eye for talent here in picking like one of anyone on the board. Could be the 7 we listed, could not be. So Steve, who's your pet cat?
Yeah, I am going to go with Bo Barnes. I love Prince Colley. Prince Colley is more of the chalk play, so to speak. So if it wasn't Barnes, it would definitely be Colley, just to give you an eye on who I visualize. But Bo Barnes, 6'2", 185, cornerback. We hopefully will see him this year, but also hopefully not, because I would prefer not to have a true freshman at corner. I have so many mixed feelings. I just know that this guy is going to shut it down eventually, whether it's this year or going forward. Bo Barnes is going to be an absolute stud. He's going to be, at the very least, a third-round pick in the NFL or better. So keep an eye out for that guy.
Speaking of NFL future draft picks, for me, it's Gabriel Rubio. I love the way this guy plays football. He's an early enrollee, but just look at his measurables. He's 6'5.5" and already 305 pounds. Usually the 3 tech is kind of in that range. As a professional athlete in the NFL, he's got that now, and he's got the size to him where he could kick to the nose guard 1 gap if need be. I just think this guy is going to be a menace for quarterbacks. I don't know if he'll play right away, but Gabriel is my guy. I think in 3 years' time, we'll be talking about this guy as a staple of the defense, along with Prince Colley as well, and hopefully a few of the DBs we signed. So kind of with, all our cards on the table, who we like, who our favorites are, who do you think is most likely to play as a freshman this coming season?
That's a great question. Oh, man. Whew. Give me one moment to just look over the list. I'm gonna say Philip Riley. I think Philip Riley is gonna come in and fight for a position, and because obviously, as we saw with Mac Jones and Devonta Smith, there's much to be desired. And it's not like the guys that we have are inherently bad. It's just, are they developed enough to compete against elite top tier talent when their number is called?
Yeah.
So I think that not to put down our corners, because I think that all of them have a future, and I think all of them will have a potential shot at the NFL. I just think they were way early on in their career to be facing such a potent offense of Alabama. And with that exposure of our, I don't want to call it a weakness, but a compromise, whatever it may be, right? I think that's what gives Riley the chance to compete day one, especially as an early enrollee.
Yeah, so for me, I split this in 2 groups because our depth chart right now that I've got on the Excel sheet, because I do a lot of research, is pretty stacked. There's no easy spot for anyone to come in. So the exception is obviously at corner. So for most likely to break through, I'm just listing all of them. I think Riley, Barnes, Tucker, JoJo all have a shot. They all offer something different. You want your length, you go Barnes. Riley seems to be the best all-around guy right now, at least in rankings. I think Tucker's really great in coverage. JoJo could be that corner that's on the inside. I think any of them can get in, because right now what we have at corner is Clarence Lewis, who was just a true freshman last year as a 3-star, and Tariq Bracy, who lost his job to Clarence Lewis. So it's pretty grim right now.
And Caleb Offord, who was also a true freshman and a 3-star guy that was kind of in and out. So again,
yeah,
I think all those guys are great, but they were not prepared.
No, and with McLeod leaving, kind of a little surprisingly, just with the extra year, you thought maybe he would want to stay, but he's going to take a shot at the draft. So, it's there to be taken. I think Kelly and co are going to have to find a grad transfer just because. And if they don't, and even if they do, really, that's open for the taking. Lewis, Bracy, both have more experience, but if any of these guys come in and beat the Mountain Camp, congrats, you're the new starting corner for Notre Dame. I would say a group of guys who could play, and I don't expect them to. For me, I went Lorenzo Styles because I think he has versatility out wide as both a field receiver, as a boundary receiver, as a slot receiver. I think he's the kind of guy you could probably play anywhere along the position. Whereas Colsey, with his big frame, you kind of project him being that big McKinley type guy. I think Lorenzo Styles could see the field just with his explosiveness. I think Rocco Spindler can see the field. Offensive line's another position where there's a lot of guys ahead of everyone, but it's unclear who's going to play where. And if Carell is playing center and Patterson gets kicked out to tackle, the guard position could be a little open, and I could see Spindler getting some time there. I also think Prince Colley, he would be, I think, maybe a starter day one, but what I think Freeman is going to do is they're going to move one of Jack Kaiser or Maurice Liafau to Rover to make up for Owusu Corboa's departure. You also obviously have Isaiah Pryor is still there. There's guys, right? There's guys to play Rover, but Prince Colley is the future, and I think they'll want to get some snaps of him early. I don't know if he'll start, but I can see him. And then Josh Bryan. The reason I'm throwing him out there as a kicker is if there's an injury or if Jonathan Jordan has a grim start to the season, we could see the freshman get some game time.
Yeah. Yep. I pretty much agree with everything you said. The only other guy I could think of is Tyler Buckner. But truthfully, I hope that we only see Buckner this year in garbage time in 4 games. That way he can just keep his red shirt. And I just hope we don't need him whatsoever, because Jack Cohn, I'm ready to get hurt again. in the words of Michael Scott, I'm ready to open up my heart to you, Jack Cohn. I'm ready to let you in and presumably destroy my entire life sometime in between December and January. But until then, I love you.
You know what I think is going to happen at quarterback is Cohn's obviously going to be the starter. I think on paper, Drew Pine is going to be the backup. Buckner will get cleanup duty, like you said, in maybe a few games. But if Cohn were to get hurt, even though Drew Pine is listed as the backup, I think Kelly would actually go straight to Buckner. I think Buckner is going to be the third quarterback for show, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I like Drew Pine because he's a really cool kid. He's got some spunk. But, I mean, it's just really tough to have this guy waiting in the wings and not think that TB is going to be the future of the program. If Tyler Buckner has to be number 12, if we have our own TB12, I mean, come on, it's destiny.
It's destiny. And while we're on Buckner, I wanted to get this out here too to our good friend Connor McQuiston, Michigan fan. Yes. Here's why Tyler Buckner is the best quarterback in the class and definitely better than JJ McCarthy. Would you agree, Steve? And this is no slight on anybody, but if you are willing to go to Michigan, you are probably you would consider Notre Dame as well, right? They're very similar profiles. They're a great academic institution. They're in the Midwest. Weather kind of sucks. Both are blue bloods. You would get more chance to compete at Notre Dame for a title, but at Michigan, you're in the top whatever. To me, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're willing to go to Michigan, you're probably willing to at least consider Notre Dame. Right?
Yeah, you're taking the call. You're visiting the campus. You're entertaining the idea.
Right. So why did Notre Dame not offer J.J. McCarthy a scholarship?
Because he stinks.
Well, I don't know if he stinks, but this is my thing. It's not that he didn't have the grades because he's going to Michigan. It's not that he wasn't interested in Notre Dame because to me, maybe you pick Michigan over Notre Dame, but you would at least, they're very similar schools, like it or not. You would consider Notre Dame. They didn't offer him because their guy was Tyler Buckner. They had highlighted this talent years ago. Tommy Rees has said it felt like I was recruiting this kid for a decade. They've been talking to Tyler Buckner for a very long time. They've picked out this talent. They've done their checks on character, on leadership, academics. Buckner is their guy, and this is no diss to obviously 5-star quarterback J.J. McCarthy, but when you talk about the rivals, Notre Dame, USC, Michigan, who got the best quarterback? Notre Dame did. Tyler Buckner, trust me, is going to be the best quarterback in this recruiting class. And I think the fact that, and Notre Dame's good at, obviously recruiting and picking out talent, the fact that they didn't offer JJ, to me, signals that this Tyler kid is special. Meanwhile, every school in the country offered Tyler, basically, right? Anyone who was worth anybody who had a shot at winning a national championship or hopes of winning a national championships offered Tyler Buckner a scholarship.
Yeah, I'm looking to see right now how many scholarships he's got offered, and the list is literally too long for me to read.
And Michigan is on it.
It
I'm going
literally
to
just
guess.
keeps going. I can't even get that low. Like it's just way too long.
Fair enough. So now that I got my Buckner propaganda aside, let's move on. Every recruiting class has 3-star guys who turn out to be ballers, whether they become All-Americans or draft picks or whatever. Who is the lower ranked guys most likely to succeed in this class?
The lower ranked, well, I'm going to start with Bo Barnes, my baby, at my pet cat. He's definitely one. I'm going to throw one at you, Mitchell Evans. I don't see a world where a 6'7", 240-pound tight end at the University of Notre Dame doesn't make a splash in one capacity or another. And then I would probably say Carrie G. 6'3" safety, that otherwise would have gone to LSU. I think those are the three that stand out to me that, they all three of them may take quite some time to get onto the field, but when they do, they're going to be some ballers.
So you picked one of my guys there, Carrie G. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
6'3" safety out of Atlanta. He's got comparisons to Kyle Hamilton. And I'm not saying this kid's going to be Kyle Hamilton, but there are strong athletic comparisons there. He's a 3-star on 24 composite, but he's a 4-star on Rivals. He was a late ascender as well. I think this kid is going to be a legit starter for Notre Dame. I'm really excited for him. I'm also going JoJo Johnson. I know he's ranked near the bottom of the class, but again, the guy, that doesn't really matter too much. There's just something about him that makes me think he'll thrive. He's got some kind of aura about him. He's got that vibe. I think JoJo Johnson's going to be a dog out there. And here's the thing. Freeman said in his media availability that JoJo was a top player in the country. And if you recall, he recruited him at Cincinnati, and he committed to him at Cincinnati. So Freeman likes JoJo, and I think, Freeman likes someone. That's probably a good indication. You went with Barnes. I think that's excellent too. I like Joe Alt, 6'7" out of Minnesota. One of those states where I feel like you get a lower recruiting just because you're not in a high-profile football state like Rhode Island or even Massachusetts. Minnesota is another one for me. And if it's not cheating, I'd say Josh Bryan because he's really a 6-star, but technically 3-star, so I'd go with him as well. How do you feel about this class, man?
Yeah, so I did make a spreadsheet over the last I did from 2017 all the way up until this year's 2021 class, and I think we definitely got some high upside here in terms of star power. Obviously, you look at probably the top 3-4 guys here, and I think you're looking at second round picks or better. But more than anything, we added a ton of depth, which we definitely needed, and there's a reason.
The COVID year, right?
Exactly. It's the COVID year. I mean, with scholarships, the way everything is working out, we added so many players to the point where I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe 3 or 4 of these players from this class eventually transferring, to be honest. But that's because we've now added an abundance of riches at basically every position where everyone's going to have the chance to compete, go to camp, wide open positions, wide open depth chart, and make a name for themselves. And I think every guy that we did inherently recruit and bring in and sign has the ability to get up to the top of the mountain, so to speak. They can definitely get that. There's not a guy on this list that I do not see as a starter at any capacity of a Power 5 program. It just depends on how quickly they ascend to that status. But it's just depth. That is essentially the drum that we can continue to hammer in regards to this class.
So I'm looking through it now, and Notre Dame has the most number of recruits in this class in the entire country, tied with Alabama and Virginia Tech at 27. we took advantage of the COVID rule. Basically, we took this opportunity to hammer out a good recruiting class while we were attractive, while we were a playoff team, and it was excellently done. I will say that Air Force is listed at 69 commits. I hope that is a computing error, but it is possible. They just brought in 69 dudes. And for that reason, I'll say that doesn't count. But this is a big, big class. Lots of depth all over the place, skilled positions. The wide receivers really, really excite me. I think it begs the question, is this ND's best class since, or when's the last time Notre Dame has had a class this good in your opinion? Because I have an answer, but I'll let you take the first shot at it.
Yeah, I mean, just going off the averages. So here's my notes from the last couple of years. So 2017, some notables were Cole Kmet, Robert Hainsey, Aaron Banks. We were the 10th overall class with 251 points, an average of 89 point whatever. My comments on that class would be that was us on the rise. As we saw this past year, we saw with an 89 average that we could ascend to with those seniors, the college football playoff. Right. So I think essentially you're anytime you have a class right around 90, 4 years later, that's congruent with a 10 to 11 win season. Now, ever since, we've basically been in the 90s. 2018, we were in 90. I mean, Houston Griffith, Kevin Austin, Shane Simon. 2019, Kyle Hamilton, Zeke Correll, Quinn Carroll. Last year, Michael Mayer, Jordan Johnson, Chris Tyree. This year, we have Buckner. Like, all the pieces seem to be coming together. I would say
this class is actually among the lowest averages of rating in our recent history, but there's so many of them, right? And that's something to consider.
And the reason is because we signed so many 3-star guys that we said, okay, we're gonna pack in the depth, and we're gonna. So yeah, there's plenty of great guys in this team. There's also a couple of guys that are going to be projects that take 2-3 years to get onto the field, but it is going to pay dividends. It absolutely is. So if you see a 89.69 rating, don't think, oh, okay, so this is kind of like it's a very good class, but not great. I think it is going to be great. I would probably say though, I would probably say the 2019 class with Hamilton and crew would be the best in my opinion.
Right. It's difficult to say because there's recruitment at the time, right? Because then you can just go back and find the highest rated class. The highest average might have even been last year with Mayer and Johnson and Tyree and Baker and Botello. I mean, that's a huge class. But for me, the way I'm looking at it, I'm cheating and I'm looking at end results. And for me, the best class we've signed in the Kelly era, I think, 2012 was a good class too, or that 13 year. But for me, it's 2016. It was only ranked 15th at the time in the country. But here's the list of dudes who have been produced from this class, have either gone to the NFL or, drafted or going to the NFL. Tommy Kramer, Liam Eichenberg, Javon McKinley, Dalen Hayes, Chase Claypool, Khalid Kareem, Troy Pride Jr., Julian Okwara, Tony Jones Jr., Jalen Elliott, Julian Love, Ian Book, and then our boy Ade in this upcoming draft.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So for me, it's 2016.
Yeah, no, 2016 was great. And the crazy part is we've been putting together comparable, if not better classes ever since.
Yep.
And that should make everybody excited. Again, we've said this so many times. We've always had the talent, we've always had the coaching to compete at the national stage and for national titles. Just in every given year, there's always been, whether it's the offensive line, defensive line, corners, whatever it may be, we've always just fell short in one capacity. What we've been building for since 2016 onward is all to add depth and just close the gap between our top end talent and the bottom end talent and make sure that it's basically plug and play. Anyone can come in and that everyone is we're just equally distributing our talent amongst all of our units, offense, defense, special teams, trenches, position players, the whole nine. And we are only getting better year after year. That's why all of this matters. It all matters. P-Wagon recruiting matters. And that's why it's so exciting.
All right. Here's another question for you. Can the 2022 class, the next one, be even better than this class?
I mean, we're off to a hot start. Tyson Ford, Joey Tanona from Zionsville, Indiana. He is a 4-star offensive tackle. Another 4-star offensive tackle up by me in Massachusetts, Ty Chan. And then we have a couple of other 3-stars right now, currently adding depth. Prospect wise, we are in on a lot of big names. We are in on some 5-stars. I mean, Zach Rice is a 5-star offensive tackle that we could potentially get. Let's see.
There's a guard out of Wisconsin that Notre Dame is going to sign.
Yeah.
I'm fairly convinced. The offensive tackle and line group in this one will be big as well.
Yep. Absolutely, and I think I saw something something pop up the other day about us being in on a 5-star linebacker as well, just because of Freeman and what he provides for us. So
a few of them, because we're even trying to flip an Ohio State guy as well. The rumor is C.J. Hicks, I believe, commit to Ohio State. There was talks that he might flip to Cincinnati. So then that rumors have been sparked up again that, well, if he was willing to flip to Cincinnati, what would he do for Notre Dame? So that's not a guarantee or anything, but that's just the type of guys we're in on. Uncommitted, committed, anything of the like. For me, I was going to say it wasn't projecting to be better. It was projecting to be a solid class, but then Marcus Freeman came along, and it's just changed everything because he has lit a fire on recruiting. As we said earlier, the USC 4-5-star linebacker had decommitted. He's likely going to Notre Dame. We've been offering a ton of linebackers, a ton of DBs. I think this class could be better, and that's a terrifying thought because I think this current class is elite.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to project to be better. Exactly why you said is obviously Freeman being the factor here. Also, I mean, it's no it's no secret that when you win football games, you get more exposure, you get better quality recruits. We are coming off of the last couple of years, 2 playoff appearances and then a bunch of wins along the way. I mean, it's 10 wins basically every season plus. The way that we are projecting to go this year with a relatively manageable and a weaker schedule as compared to what we traditionally have. And now with Jack Cohn coming in, providing some stability at the quarterback position, the biggest need we had, which has now been addressed with a guy who's a 5th-year redshirted senior to bring experience, guidance, poise, and talent. You'd be hard pressed to see Notre Dame, win less than 9 games. I think they're at least a 10-win team, and we'll cover this more with a season preview. But if we can continue to be a top 15 program, top 10 program, fighting for another playoff appearance, while we have Marcus, it just gives him more ammo to say we are not even at our precipice yet, and look what we're doing. Now, if we get you, Mr. Recruit, just imagine where we're going. And that's going to put a lot of ammo in his gun for him to pull the trigger when the time is right. So it's all lining up.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for Notre Dame football. The thing that Cohn did is he gave you the ability to compete next year. We can go out and win 12 games on our schedule. It's not a rebuilding year like people were thinking. Notre Dame is going to be a contender next year. What it does is it holds you over and allows these upcoming recruiting classes to develop. And by the time Cohn leaves, you're going to have a quarterback battle that Tyler Buchner is almost certainly going to win. And speaking of Tyler Buchner, Steve, I found the list of recruits for you, and let's just dive into this for a moment. Here's the most notable ones. Alabama, recruited by Jeff Banks and Steve Sarkisian. Have you ever heard of them?
I've heard. I think they have a pretty decent program.
Yeah, I think they know what they're doing over there in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, they had a pretty good quarterback this past year, right?
They did. They did. Almost Heisman winner.
In college football history. Okay.
Georgia.
They are above average program, I'd say.
Yeah, I hear they're all right. I've only played 2 playoffs or nothing. Michigan.
They're
there you go.
But
Notre Dame didn't offer McCarthy, but Michigan offered Buchner. Just throwing that out there. Nebraska used to be something.
Used to be.
Oregon. He's from California.
Yeah, and Oregon has had a good run with recruiting, with like Kayvon Thibodeau and a bunch of other like 5-star guys they've been bringing in like year after year. Like they are pretty much probably going to be controlling the Pac-12 for the next couple of years because they've done a great job.
And speaking of the Pac-12, you know who else has offered Tyler Buckner?
Hmm.
The University of Southern California.
USC, okay, they have a pretty good run with top tier talent and
They
quarterbacks over
do.
the past couple decades, right?
And USC's brought in some two talented quarterbacks in their class, no doubt. But look, we know who the GOAT is in this class. It's Buckner, man. It's Buckner. We went into California, we beat out Pac-12 favorite Oregon, we beat out USC, we beat out Michigan, we beat out Alabama. Tyler Buckner's legit. He is legit. This class is legit. Steve, you know what else is legit?
What's that?
The Four Horsemen podcast's new artwork.
Woo!
For those of you who are either following us on Twitter or obviously listening to this podcast at this very moment, you'll notice that our little logo is different. So I want to give a big shout out to Michael Kloska, graphic designer. Has done some good work. If anyone's interested in getting something done, I highly recommend reaching out to him. Big fan of the work he did. It's at Michael Kloska, Kloska. It's the way I'd pronounce it. I like it, man. We've got the green of the retro ND jerseys that we love. We got the gold of that jersey with white trim. Four Horsemen podcast written in Notre Dame's font. That's the font the university uses. And then 4 old-timey helmets to represent the era of the Four Horsemen. Are you thrilled with it or what?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We talked about it, extensively in our group chat, and as soon as you floated the idea, I was game. Our old one was great. You did a good job with it, but we are building. We are growing very quickly, episode after episode, and we just have more and more listeners. So thank you everyone so much. It means that you're retweeting us. It means you're interacting with us, liking our tweets, answering our questions, DMing us, and then more importantly, share it with your friends. If everyone has someone they can talk Notre Dame college football with, it's just we tend to find one another. So when we come up with an episode, just send this over to them, whether it's Spotify or Apple, and if you can give us a 5-star review, it helps us grow, and this new artwork definitely helps legitimize us. So I think we are a professional run operation that does great research. Wink, wink. In my opinion.
Yeah, I'm pretty thrilled with it. We're also on the road to 1,000 Twitter followers, which is crazy because less than 2 years ago we were at about 50. So we're growing. Growth is real. Join us at Horseman Pod. Like Steve said, 5-star review on Apple Music would be greatly appreciated. We do this for the fans. Before we go, new defensive backs / passing game coordinator coach Chris O'Leary has been promoted to that position that was vacated by Terry Joseph. He was a graduate assistant at Notre Dame. He coached safeties at Florida Tech and was a grad assistant at Georgia State. He played wide receiver at Indiana State. So not much that we can really talk about in terms of what he brings. But given the fact that Kelly and, of course, defensive coordinator Marcus Freeman felt comfortable promoting him, I think that's a good sign. And we're going to see what he's made of. So, welcome on board, Coach O'Leary. And I know that's exciting for everyone here, recruits, fans, everything. So, Steve, do you have anything else you want to kind of hit on before we leave?
I was going to make a clever 1993 reference. I still don't have it yet, but I have all summer to come up with it. So it does still feel like 1993. I will find a way to make it work. Other than that, go Irish.
Also, I got to hold you back on this one. The Super Bowl is going to be on in about an hour and a half. Who you taking?
I have learned, being a Steelers fan growing up in New England over the past 20 years, you never fucking ever bet against Tom Brady.
Well, I'm going to bet against Tom Brady. Chiefs are going to win this one. Obviously this has been our first episode in about a month. Off season we slow things down a bit. Our next one will probably be around the NFL draft, maybe combine, so that could be March, April. You might hear from us again. If anything happens, we might jump on. But in the meantime, you can find us on Twitter, and it's been a pleasure, Steve. I know this is your favorite topic.
Yeah, for sure. Love recruiting, love the Irish, and go Irish. That's everything.
Go Irish, baby.